performance anxiety every single time. I Okay, give me a moment.
No problem.
Welcome to the Knife Show, where we dissect the human psyche and society. I'm Joyce, and I'm an INFJ.
And my name is Denzel Mensah, and I'm an ENFJ. Today we are going to be talking about pain. And honestly, this is probably one of the episodes that maybe it's the 9 in me. I don't know. that I don't think I have any. I know I'm gonna have things to say, but there's not much already there to throw out about pain. So this is definitely going to be one of those more brainstorming kind of videos, and I'm actually a little bit excited to see where we go with this because I believe that Joyce said that she has a lot to say about pain, and I always like when Joyce has a lot to say about anything. So this will be a fun episode. But what I will say is that we were kind of given this request or recommendation from Kurt, ISFP Kurt from Joyce's channel, also one of our classmates from Personality Hackers Profiler Training. And yeah, so Kurt, we are finally taking on this idea, and this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be fun. So, Joyce, per usual, I've tossed the ball over to you. Start us off. What do you have to say about pain?
Pain is an underlying symptom of a larger problem. So if you experience it, it's a sign to inquire deeper. It's pain is a compass. When you've been lost, it's when you're in a video game and the help tab starts appearing because you're veering off the track. It's you know like when you're playing one of those driving games and you accidentally go the wrong way, and then there's the sign that says wrong way, wrong way. Pain is telling you that you're going in a way that is not in accordance to something, and it's to make you aware, to shock you into that. And so with physical pain, we often experience it in a jolt, and so we know, oh, I'm in pain, my knee. And your instant response is to tend to it and to soothe it. And I wonder if human beings on a collective level are trying to soothe some sort of pain that comes from somewhere else in their life. I like the saying that there's no such thing as meeting a completely sane individual. There's no such thing as a completely sane person, because we're all traumatized in our own unique way. And so oftentimes pain is a signal of the situations in which we have not fully processed. And it can show up in different ways. Procrastination, doing things that aren't the best for you, self-sabotage, or being lazy can come from pain. It's a signal that something is amiss within your mind. You might be experiencing a void within you that's growing larger and larger, and you feel it in your pain receptors. Emotional pain, it registers just as much as physical pain. And so oftentimes you'll hear about how people who go through verbal abuse or emotional abuse, in some ways that can be equivalent to getting hit in some ways. In other ways, not. It depends on the situation, right? But sometimes for some people, a hit just lasts for that moment, whereas something said to them can linger on for the rest of their lives, depending on what is said and how they were hit. So I'm not saying this blanket to every situation. The essence of what I'm getting at is that this pain then goes on to direct our lives, and that is what we call fate. And so Carl Jung says, we let our unconscious drive sometimes, and then we just call it unconscious fate, when it really is a part of ourselves that is driving the car, but we think it's not. When we don't process things, other things can take a hold of our steering wheel, and we think that it was out of control when it was actually a part of our shadow that was taking the wheel. And so oftentimes I think it's important to deal with pain because it prevents us from fully connecting with people. We talked about a few episodes before about receiving love and the difficulty with receiving love. And sometimes that can come from pain. Sometimes it can be hard to fathom love when you associate love with pain. You know, people who think that their freedom is being taken away when they're in a relationship, they have experienced the pain of having a too controlling partner before. And so now they might be more hesitant to be in a committed relationship because they're like, oh, I want to be flighty because at some point I was with a partner who was really possessive and they controlled me a lot. And that was really painful to one of my core needs. So I'm going to exhibit it through a behavior that I'm just not going to commit because commitment entails a lot of other things. And so throughout life, we might associate things with having strings attached. And so these strings attached can be very painful. And so it can cause us to make decisions in ways that we may not understand or others may not understand why we do it. But I believe that everything we do comes from something. There's a root cause to every single thing that we experience. And I think pain and pleasure are the biggest motivating factors within the human experience. And so to understand them, you get to kind of control your mindset in some way that gets to control your life in some way. Because you can, maybe there's a mental thought pattern or a mindset that's causing you pain and causing you to make poor decisions. And if you unroot, oh, where's the pain coming from? It might get you closer to why you procrastinate or why you think you're not good enough and why you might need to go to therapy. It's rooted in pain. And oftentimes, that pain cements into identity within people and they don't know it. And so a lot of people carry around their pain as if it's a part of them. They're like, oh, you know, I'm ugly and it's just a part of me. And then you try to tell your friend, oh, you're not ugly. You actually are objectively very pretty. But pain causes this dysmorphia. There's a type of dysmorphia called body dysmorphia, but I believe that you can have dysmorphia with every other area of your life. You can be a singer and you can think that you have voice dysmorphia. I'll never sing good. And then everyone listens to you and they're like, snaps, that's the most beautiful song ever. But because of your rejection sensitive dysmorphia or your dysmorphia against any part of yourself, you think that you suck. And so it's really hard to overcome this barrier because no compliments will get through your shield of hating yourself unless you deal with that. And so pain causes so many forms of barriers within people. If someone's really guarded, if people have wall upon wall upon wall, those are typically to save themselves pain. And so oftentimes when people are standoffish, when they're rude or mean, most people aren't born that way with the exception of some psychopaths and some mean people. But most people learn to be very guarded and rude because of some trauma that they dealt with before or some sort of pain point that they haven't addressed. So they don't feel like they have the resources to stay vulnerable. So they have no choice but to protect themselves with spears thrown your way. I know it's pretty cheesy, but I think the saying hurt people is true because it's a means of self-protection. Sometimes our limbic system interprets things as fight or flight or freeze. And so sometimes you'll unconsciously interpret things as you being under attack. So it's like, oh, you know, the reason why I'm actually throwing these arrows at people without knowing that I'm doing it is because I always feel like I'm in a state of feeling under attack. I don't even know where it's coming from. I always feel like there's a tiger shaking in a bush, and I just don't know why I feel under attack all the time. And sometimes chronic trauma or chronic pain, whether it's mental, physical, or how you perceive yourself, self-esteem pain, where you're like, I just hate myself so much. It can result in you always feeling attacked, or you're preemptively anticipating attack. It's like, oh, you know, if my singing is so bad, then I just anticipate that other people will comment and tell me how bad it is. And so you're already anticipating people slashing you with their sword. And so you're going to naturally have this very pointy exterior where you have the needles out so that no one will hurt you, but also you don't even give them a chance to like you to your full capacity without hurting them back. And so oftentimes I find relationships actually decay and they spiral because of pain. One party starts to resent the other party for something that was said or done, and it accumulates over time to the point where there are small arguments over, hey, you didn't wash the dishes in the sink, you suck. So they take a small action and then they blow it out of proportion. But that's because they've been dealing with the gradual buildup of pain, the poking of the bear as you speak. So when you poke the bear 10,000 times, they might react by wanting to bite your finger off. And you might say, oh, that's a disproportionate reaction to me poking them. But they're not reacting to that poke in the moment. They're reacting to everything that reminds them of that poke at that moment, everything that builds up to that. And so a lot of people deal with built up pain in their relationships. And what it causes is these little passive aggressive micro expressions that over time ruin the relationship. And I feel like dealing with pain is how we get to the root of why people's relationships get worse and worse over time. Like the reason why people over time sometimes have problems with taking their partner for granted, or being less impressed by their partner in general, or finding less of a spark with their partner. Sometimes it comes from passive aggressive built up hate or resentment or pain from something your partner did a long time ago, and it just was unaddressed to the point where it's a wound where because it was not cleaned out, it's built up with pus and all of these other things. So wounds sometimes get infected, and so that can cause relationship spiraling downwards. And so I find pain is, oh, there is sound coming from the outside. Maybe that is the kind of feeling under attack. Oh, what is that? Okay, I'm kidding. Feeling unappreciated in relationships is a form of pain, because it's feeling like you're not valued, feeling unseen, unheard. And that built up over time is actually its own form of chronic pain. I know that's really abstract, but I find that because you cannot see the pain, it's not like a literal wound where you can see the blood dripping out. People take it less seriously, and so oftentimes they're left to fester more often. And so I find pain is central to how people run their lives, because it's one of the most motivating factors in life, yet it's hard to talk about because people don't feel like they have the space to always talk about the things that hurt them, because it's not socially acceptable. But how can you heal it if you don't have someone to speak with it about? And so it's a big part of my belief system. It's to give people the safe space to speak their soul, to speak their mind, to speak their heart truth, to speak anything about them, with their mask down, with their clothing down, with all of their guards and armor down, so that they can process the pain that maybe they don't have the outlet to process with anyone else. It's my philosophy to create that space where I can be a safe reservoir for people to acknowledge that they have pain and to let me know about it so that we can address it in some way.
That was absolutely fantastic. That wasn't even just an icebreaker. You done destroyed the whole glacier that could have destroyed the Titanic with that breakdown of pain. If it's been debated if you were an NI Dom, I think that this should pretty much resolve that. But seriously, that was very comprehensive, and it struck a lot of thoughts for me. I think one of the first and most immediate thoughts was absolutely pain. I think is something that I want to fact check this. But I heard, at least when I was younger, because I used to wonder stuff like, why do we itch? Why do we itch? And I learned that I heard that was like the lowest level of pain that we receive. And sometimes it's to just, alert you that, oh, something's on your skin, or, stuff like that. And I think that it roots back to like what you said. Pain is an indicator of what's really going on. It's like breadcrumbs. It's trying to get your attention to pay attention to something that could be vital. There was someone who oh yeah, actually we both profiled him, who said something along the lines of, when we had asked them the profiling question of like what's their relationship with their body and stuff of that nature, they said something like they actually now I don't remember if we profiled them together or if I profiled the person on my own, but either way, they had hurt themselves when they were just out. Like I think they tripped or something like that, or stubbed their toe, and they thought that they were fine. And for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or something like that, it was like hurting them, but they just kind of like ignored it. And then later on, when they finally, like, I don't remember how long it was, but they finally went to the doctors for it. They found out that they had received like they got a hair split, one of the I forgot the medical term for it, but like it was bad. Like they really messed up their foot somehow. And it's like I think that they also mentioned something, and I've heard things like this all the time, like if people had paid attention to their pain earlier, then they would have been able to actually resolve and heal something before it got worse. And I think that that's not only a physical thing, I think that that is definitely also a metaphysical thing. Like if you start to feel some certain type of pain early on, like emotionally, you should probably find a way to tend to that before it gets to the point where now you're unable to tend to it, because, or if you do tend to it, it's going to be a lot more work because you've waited months to be able to get back to it, and now it's like been deep seated and it's caused a lot of trauma and it hasn't been resolved, and there's scabs over it and all of this other stuff, like you said, like the pus and everything. And it's just like that's obviously like not something that you really want to deal with. You're scarred now. That's how you get scars. If you were unable to actually get stitched up quickly, then it's going to cause a scar on its own as your body just tries to do the best that it can do. Same thing with emotional pain. That's what's just going to happen. So I feel like that's a really big thing that we need to pay attention to. When we identify pain right away, we should not ignore it. We should allow ourselves to go through it, not over it. And when we go through it, we need to find a healthy way to be able to process it. Don't be afraid to share your pain with other people. A lot of people are afraid of that. Shoot, I'll even say it myself. Sometimes it's due to like a vulnerability issue. Other times it's because they don't want to burden other people. Sometimes it's both. But I feel like if people really care about you, they're going to care about your pain as well. And maybe some people, they won't be able to hold that space for your pain, and that's not their fault. That doesn't mean they care about you any less. There's a difference between people who just aren't capable and those who are capable but just don't care to. And I feel like when it comes to those who actually are capable of it and care to, you need to know who those people are. Somebody's probably in pain right now. um so, but yeah, I feel like this is a really big issue that we should really pay attention to when it comes to like emotions, and not just like with the physical, but like really like a lot of it being spiritual even. Like what types of pain are you going through and where does it root to? And then number two, also like what you said, how much are we identifying with that pain, and what is it like when it calcifies? Like we allow it to become like a part of our body. Like when we when we don't spend time flossing enough with our teeth and everything like that, then what ends up happening is that the plaque and all of that buildup that we have between like the gaps in our teeth and stuff of that nature and the crevices, it will build up and then it'll harden to the point where it actually starts to like become as almost as hard as your teeth itself. So then you can't floss it away. You can't just brush it away. Now it's like a part of your tooth, almost to the point where if you try to do it without a dentist's help, then you could break off part of your tooth. So your teeth now identify with that flossing because you're not readily taking care of it. And I'm thinking now of like how even if you're not going through something, it's still a healthy thing to be going to therapy, because therapy is not just, oh, I've been stabbed, now I need like help with, where I've been stabbed in my heart. But it's also, how do I avoid being stabbed again? Or how do I avoid being stabbed, period? What do I do when I'm stabbed? How do I maintain after I've been stabbed? So it's good to go to that maintenance thing, just like when you brush your teeth every day. Hopefully, people brush their teeth every day, twice a day, hopefully. That's going to maintain your teeth from building up that plaque. In the same sense, if you're being attentive to how pain is being built up in your life, then you're going to keep it from calcifying. And if it doesn't calcify, then you won't identify with that pain. I've seen so many people identify with their pain. They really feel like it's a part of them. Some people even trauma bond. Like, it's almost as if they didn't have their pain, then they'd feel worthless. And don't get me wrong, pain often leads to a lot of great things, because through pain, like, that whole idea of like no pain, no gain, that's a real thing sometimes. If you don't really like work out like well enough and all of that, like, and you're not sore, your muscles are not really breaking down and then regenerating in a fashion that's going to give you the strength that you're looking for. But at the same time, uh, if you if you are dealing with too much of that pain, then you're probably also not really going to be gaining anything. So there's something that needs to be there. So if you are so yes, no pain, no gain in certain situations. It's good to have that pain in times in your life, because it helps you to appreciate the good in life a lot of times. And it teaches you great lessons. You learn from your pain. But if you over identify with that pain, then you might trap yourself in a situation where it's like, now that you are able to escape that pain, now that you're able to now that you're able to rise from that pain and no longer allow it to hold you down, because you've identified so much with that pain, because that it's all you've been talking about, it was what you spoke of and everything, and now it had really become your identity, then you feel like, no, I can't let go of this, because now this is what I stand for. And that's when I think that pain can become a little bit too much of a problem. So pain is not a bad thing. I think that pain is neutral. Um, Even when we don't like it, I feel like nobody likes pain. There is a thing called masochists for a reason. But I feel like, okay, a lot of people don't really enjoy pain. And I guess sexual pain also counts too. But still, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, I would argue sometimes sexual pain or masochism can be soothing a different source of pain. So it's almost like using
Mm,
pain to soothe a different pain is still they like pain, but they also like the fact that it soothes a painful part of them. So it's a weird
yes.
paradox there.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, that's pretty much where it's kind of like rooted in. Like, it's almost like, yeah, it's kind of like when people cut themselves, so that they can pay more attention to a pain that's like, okay, this pain is going to distract me from the pain that I don't know how to deal with. I'm not used to, which is more emotional. So yeah, I agree with that. So, um, but yes, at the same time, I think my biggest thing that I'm saying right now is just that pain is a thing that is necessary for life, unfortunately. But also at the same time, we need to learn how to know when there's too much of it. We need to know how to distribute it, as in like share our pain with other people. We need to know how to be there for the people who are in pain, like keep an eye out for those people, while being sure of your own capacity to take on their pain. And then lastly, I think that it's best also to make sure that we don't over-identify with that pain. Um, as a Black person, as a person of color, I'll be first to say that sometimes I personally feel like we over identify with our pain. And it's to the point, and there's a lot of, videos and movies and stuff where they've like talked about this, where yes, we have definitely been through a lot, and I do not want to dilute that. I do not want to make it seem as if like that's just not a thing. We've definitely been through a lot. I don't want to minimize that, but at the same time, we've also come so far as a race. There's still a lot that we have to progress to, for sure. And I'm not saying we should forget what we've been through, but I see in certain situations, not all, but in certain situations, certain people of color, they over-identify with that pain, and it's that pain that keeps them from being able to progress forward. And I think that happens with a lot of people, like even outside of racial issues, is what I'm trying to say. That was just an example. A lot of people, because of that pain that they've experienced, they don't want to move into their next relationship because they're afraid of their next relationship hurting them more. They want to hold on to whatever hurt them before and feel sorry for themselves in a way. And it's like, nah, sometimes the best way to get over your pain, at least emotionally, the metaphysical pain and everything, is to go back out there and live life in a way that could probably hurt you again. So pain is something that it has many remedies, and it has many causes for it. As a matter of fact, one of my there's a poet. His name is Khalil Gibran. He wrote something about pain that just came to mind that I've always really liked. He said, "Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. It is the bitter potion by which the physician within you heals your sick self. Therefore, trust the physician and drink his remedy in silence and tranquility." I love that, the way that I understand it, and I want to hear what you think, Joyce. Is that pain being a bitter potion is kind of like it's exactly what it says. It's a medicine that we don't want to take. We don't want to take that disgusting cough syrup. But when we take it, trusting the physician, and we just drink his remedy in silence and tranquility, we know that at the end of the day, it's going to allow us to be better. So when it says your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding, I think that that's really what it comes down to. Like, pain brings us, like, that's why people say, like, get out of your comfort zone. Pain is not comfortable. So once you're like in this shell of understanding, you're very comfortable. You're not dealing with pain, all of this stuff. You're protected. But now, once you step out of that, it breaks that shell of your understanding, which could seem very disorienting and bad. But then it leads you to a place where now you're able to understand so much more about life. And just like I said, like, pain causes you to grow from that point. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that as of right now.
Absolutely. Pain is definitely bitter medicine because no one likes it, but it does hold a blessing or a lesson within it. And so you can either take pain in a fixed mindset way or in a growth mindset way. And pain sucks when it's chronic and you don't know how to stop it. So there's a difference between one-time pain and chronic pain. Because when you have chronic pain, it's very easy to develop learned helplessness. So what that is, oh, you get hurt so much that you don't even have a solution for it anymore. You don't know how to stop it. So you just feel helpless against it, and you just accept the fact that you're going to deal with this chronic pain all the time. And so you can let it defeat you in that sense and take it in a fixed mindset approach, which is I fall victim to all the time. If I'm in a destructive relationship, let's say, for example, if it's chronically unhealthy, it's easy to develop learned helplessness. And that can pervade through your life as a general sense of helplessness throughout your life. And that pain you feel from the helplessness and from the dysfunction and the unhealth can ripple onto other forms of your life. Whereas, like, not caring about your surroundings and making it clean, and not caring about your appearance and letting that fade, I don't know, not showering, are symptoms of depression, but they're also symptoms of learned helplessness, put into a situation where chronically over time you feel like you can't fix it. And so you feel a despair, a hopelessness, which is a form of chronic pain. And then there is pain that you think that you can fix. So if there's a growth mindset towards pain where you're like, oh, this pain is malleable, you can move it, you can actually transmute it into lessons. Richard Rohr says that if you do not transmute pain, you transmit it. So if you don't transform your pain, you transmit it to the next person. And so it's really important to deal with the pain dwelling within you, because it turns into a whole other monster if unaddressed, because you don't even know you're doing it. Sometimes when we act out of pain, we just think that it's us, because if pain is chronic enough, it feels like a part of us. And so it's good to kind of approach pain in a sense of taking out the lesson or taking out something from it where you can be the better person from it and not let it control you or push you down and compromise you. Kind of finding a way to make the pain, almost hack the pain. So I'm all about kind of like figuring out hacks in your mindset to help you become a better person. And so I've been trying to notice the pain within me. I find that therapy is just trying to life hack your pain or life hack your sadness into getting rid of it, or getting rid of the things that are blocking you or preventing you from being your best self. So something that I've really been into was how new habits are caused from removing friction. So if you want to develop a new healthy way of doing anything, the best way to do it is to figure out all the forms of friction preventing you from implementing or having it seamlessly into your life, and trying to remove as much friction as you can. And pain is a huge source of friction. So to any new hobby or activity or life change, and it's important to recognize. And it's a signal that your needs aren't met. So pain typically is telling you, hey, your needs are unmet. It's when you're playing The Sims and your sim really needs to go pee, and it's like at the red bar or the orange bar, right? That's what pain is. It's telling us that a need is urgently or vitally calling for your attention. Like there's some sort of relevance to the pain, and it's trying to snap you back into reality. And so I find with pain, sometimes you can hack it by trying to figure out where it's coming from and trying to take it out of your life. And I'll give you perhaps something to ground it in an example. So let's say that you're going through a period of life where you realize that you feel a lot of pain from being single. You're like, wow, I just need to be in relationship, because being alone disturbs me in some level, or I feel uncomfortable. And what that is, it's pain. It's the pain of feeling a sense of void. So sometimes pain can alert us of the voids that are developing within us that we're trying to resolve externally rather than internally. But as you hear everywhere, it's not good to find extrinsic motivation or extrinsic rewards. It's better to find a sense of intrinsic reward or an intrinsic motivation or an intrinsic sense of self-love. And so the pain in that situation is telling us, hey, it's really painful to be by yourself. Why is it so painful to be by yourself? Is there a situation that happened to you where now you feel really awkward being in your internal space because every time you go there, you experience pangs of pain and you feel overwhelmed? You feel like you don't have the tools to deal with that pain. So sometimes the avoidance of pain might be indicating that you alone feel like you don't have enough sufficient support or resources to deal with the pain on your own. So you feel like the only choice you have is to avoid or escape it or numb it out in some form. And so sometimes how we deal with it also shows what we think is our capacity to deal with that pain. And so sometimes that's why I have this weird NF mushy gushy belief that we all need each other and that we're all in this together. No one gets out of this alive, as they say. And so we should all be each other's teammates. A really amazing spiritual belief that I enjoy is we're all close friends, but we don't know it yet, or we're all close friends that have forgotten about it. And I like to treat people like that, even if it's not true, because I want to treat people as they have potential to be close to me, or they have potential to be beautiful in my eyes. I just have to figure out where that is. And so it's giving grace to people and giving them compassion and giving them time to wow me in some way or to inspire me in some way. So being open to their beauty. And I find that that helps us both deal with the pain residing within us. And so my belief is there's no human being in this world that doesn't have pain. And so we're all team members in this world that is giving us pain, and we're here to help make sense of it and to love each other through it and to hold space for each other through it. Because it's sometimes easier to deal with pain in a community, in a safe space that can accept it. There's a phrase, power of the witness. And what that means is just having someone hear your story, just being able to say it in a safe space has medicinal healing properties. So one of the ways to heal is to have a place where you can be objective and to not have it judged, and to just be able to put the pain somewhere where you don't feel overwhelmed. And you notice that once you say it, it's not as scary as what it seemed like in your head. And by the very fact of voicing it, you make it more manageable. You take this mythical dragon and you turn it into a dog, and you're like, oh, my pain actually wasn't as scary as I thought it was when I said it out loud. And so it becomes more dealable, more digestible through the communication of it. Because you realize that you're not alone, that people have dealt with something similar, or someone they know has dealt with something similar. And you're not some messed up freak. You don't have to experience shame for your pain because someone else can relate. And shame is one of the magnituding factors that make your pain unbearable. So when you can get rid of the shame that's accompanied by pain, you make it manageable.
Yeah, that actually really reminds me of this anime, very, very short anime. I think it's like, I want to say like 12 episodes or so, maybe even 6. I don't remember. It was a really short anime, but it's called Kiznaiver, Kiznaiver. The two protagonists, or two main characters of the show, is Katsuhira, who's this boy who does not experience any pain at all. And then there's Noriko, who is a quintessential INFJ character, I believe, who actually does experience. She experiences a lot of pain, and essentially, Noriko creates this system called the Kiznaiver that allows 6 teenagers to share each other's pain. So the pain is like split between all 6 of them, and they have to go a whole summer sharing their pain. They don't even know each other. They don't even interact and all of that. And they're kind of like forced to, now be more considerate of each other, because, hey, if I just hit one of these guys because I'm upset, that's not going to hurt me, but it's also going to hurt the 5 other people who are not involved. So it teaches them to really become considerate of like, whoa, let me think twice before I do this action. And there was actually a masochist who was part of the 6. So he loved when people would like stub their toe. And he's like, oh, yes, yes. Like, and it's just like, whoa. But at the same time, there was so much to learn from that too. In fact, I did a video with the INTJ who introduced me to the show. I watched through it a second time, and we did a video. So on my channel, the video is called Bonding by Bruises. And so we did a video on that, and we went really in depth with the idea of pain, I guess, and that from that perspective, and how using pain can often like help us bond. But that was one of the biggest problems that Katsuhira had. He did not have pain. He didn't experience pain. So he would get bullied and beaten up, and other people would be like, oh my gosh, like Katsuhira, like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, it just happens. I don't really even feel anything anymore. And because of that, people couldn't see themselves in him. So they couldn't relate to him. And it made them hate him in a way, because the show is pretty much teaching that pain causes us to relate to other people, to see, everybody wants to see themselves in someone else. And when I see the pain that you're going through and I can identify my pain with yours, then now I'm closer to you in a way. That's what helps bring us closer. So it's almost like without pain, intimacy cannot truly evolve. And that's quite a interesting philosophy to go by. But yeah, I think that goes to further show that like pain is part of the human experience. And the more that we pay attention to our pain and process our pain in a healthy manner, so not over identifying, not suppressing, stuff like that, then the more we'll be able to actually have through the pain will become a door or a portal, a pain portal to pleasure. And I feel like that's something that we as people can really learn from. Pain, pleasure, portals, people.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pain doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's value neutral until your brain assigns it a value. And so something I've been doing is I've been trying to shift my expectations. So I realized that one of the reasons why I'm afraid of pain is because I'm secretly a perfectionist, and I'm a perfectionist because I have my ego
It's
tied
not
to
a
my
secret, by the way.
my ego is tied to my performance. And so that I think messing up and experiencing pain means that I messed up and that I feel shame over it. But I realized if I redefine myself, so one of my expectations for life now is I want to be wrong or make mistakes or feel pain at least 10,000 times in my life. And if I reach that, I might go even further higher up. And because I want to set my expectations where I add in pain into the equation so I don't get distraught every time I experience it, and that I almost want to experience it. Otherwise, I won't meet my expectation of wanting to experience pain. And I know that sounds weird, but it's almost like if I haven't experienced pain or rejection, that means I haven't put myself out there, which means that I failed myself in some way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so
Humanists will not learn how to do as many flips as they do without putting themselves out there and falling, sometimes even breaking their neck before becoming an Olympus. So yeah.
Yeah. So I've been trying to figure out ways to change your mindset in which you can have a higher pain tolerance for certain things that happen to you. And particularly, this has been a huge learning curve because I'm a very sensitive person. And so I've been trying to reframe things so I don't take things in a way where my confidence gets crushed. Because my confidence does get crushed, which is why when I work jobs and I mess up, I like the job a little less sometimes. And I'm like, well, particular mess ups with particular reactions from other people will actually cause me to feel less grateful that I work there. And so over time, I've become less and less enthusiastic at the positions that I'm at. And so I realized that I really have to reframe rejection, reframe criticism, reframe failure as a part of the learning experience, a part of the curve. And if I don't experience that, it means that I'm not alive and I'm not living, and that I'm being too safe with life. And I want to try my best to get myself out of my comfort zone as much as possible, no matter how many times that'll make me sad or cry or hurt, because I want to have the full experience of what it means to be human. And being human always involves the pain aspect. And
Yes.
so oftentimes we have these goals, but we never think about at what cost. You know, sometimes someone wants to become an amazing pianist or amazing gymnastic, or an amazing something, but they don't realize at what cost are you willing to do it. And so I find pain is the cost of many beautiful things in life. Pain is the cost of love. Pain is the cost of being vulnerable, because there are going to be times in which the other person hurts you, even if they really don't want to hurt you. It's just a miscommunication or something. Pain is the cost of putting yourself out there. Pain is the cost of showing up. It's the cost of leaning in. Pain is the cost of the experience of being human. And if you don't allow for pain, on some level, you're sheltering yourself from life.
Yeah. I fully agree with you. So, all of that being said, we hope that those of you who have been watching, y'all have taken the time to really sit with yourselves and think about, okay, where do I feel pain, not just on my body, but in my mind or in my heart, in my spirit? And where is it traced to? What can I do with this pain? How much is it already calcified? How much do I already identify with it to the point where I don't even want to let go of that pain? I'm hoping that now this video has probed you to want to do better with identifying that pain without identifying with it and figuring out what to do with it. Per usual, if you check out the description. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, before we go to the ending sequence, I have one other thing to add, and it's pain and addiction are one and the same coin. So oftentimes when people try to get over their addictions, and I know addictions, they're the most obvious when someone has a drinking problem or when someone has a drug problem, but we can experience addiction everywhere. Addiction to being in a relationship, addiction to eating, addiction to being in unhealthy dynamics, addiction to your phone. And sometimes that can come out of pain. And so when people try to get over an addiction, such as drinking, they actually go through the 12-step program. And one of the steps is actually going through all of the things that have hurt you and that you've felt pain or shame in. And so
you're trying to numb yourself and distract yourself from what's really happening over there.
Yeah. So if you have an unhealthy habit that you could characterize as an addiction, even if it's an unconventional addiction, it's good to consider that the root could be from pain.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, absolutely. So like all that being said, be sure to check out the description where you can find both my channel and Joyce's channel as well, so that you could subscribe to those. Also, if you'd like profiling sessions from the both of us together, then check out the description for that as well. Email us. If you have any recommendations, then be sure to email us or comment. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, comment. And yeah, I think I feel complete. Do you feel complete?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well then, everyone, until next time, stay sharp.
Stay sharp.
また夜が明ければお別れ夢は時幻に